If you were a taxi driver in New York, what would your day look like when the meter wakes before you do and the dispatch screen already blinks red? At 4:47 a.m., you slap the cracked partition, smell old vinyl and pine cleaner, and read the garage text saying 2 night drivers called out sick.
Come on.
The medallion cab idles under sodium light, its
9
roof light
minutes?
buzzing faintly, while the tablet freezes twice and adds 9 unpaid minutes before rollout. You check tire pressure with a cheap gauge, wipe coffee grit from the fare card reader, and hear the supervisor warn about airport queue times. The first siren passes on 10th Avenue, blue light skating over the hood, and the fuel receipt reminds you gas climbed again overnight. Before 5 o'clock, you sign the trip sheet with a dull pen, tuck $20 bills under the visor, and feel yesterday and Oppo's shoulder not wake up. The garage mechanic jokes that the transmission only hates Mondays, and you laugh because the laugh is cheaper than another repair ticket. You ease onto the West Side Highway, wipers dragging salt across the windshield, while surge alerts promise demand that never reaches your pocket. A nurse outside a hospital waves with 2 gloved fingers, duffel hanging low, and you pop the trunk that sometimes sticks in cold weather. Her badge knocks the partition as she says Queens, no tolls, and the Easy Pass icon on your tablet flashes low balance anyway. She smells like sanitizer and cafeteria coffee, and you steer around orange barrels while the meter climbs slower than the dawn. At 5:32, the FDR backs up near the bridge work, brake lights stacking like coals, and the nurse apologizes for traffic you cannot control. You tell her nobody apologizes to the meter, and for 5 blocks the joke holds, thin but warm, before another horn shreds it. The cab coughs when you accelerate, a soft stutter through the steering column, and you make a note to avoid hard merges. By 6 o'clock, the skyline turns pewter, steam rises from street grates, and dispatch sends 3 pings you cannot accept while trapped in construction. The nurse pays by card, tips $2, says stay safe, and those 2 words sit heavier than the folded bills under your visor. You swing back toward Midtown, passing bakery vents and stacked trash bags, while the morning shift floods the curb with rolling cases and impatience. A doorman whistles you over on 57th, glove bright as a flag, and a businessman enters still buttoning his collar. He wants LaGuardia in 25 minutes, taps his watch twice, and asks whether the taxi lanes are moving better today. You know they are not, because the radio just reported a disabled SUV near the tunnel approach and 2 lanes pinched down. He opens a spreadsheet on his laptop, screen reflecting in the partition, and asks you to take the faster route that does not exist. You choose the legal lane, ignore the bus-only temptation, and feel his silence turn sharp as the meter counts every stalled second. At the red on First Avenue, an e-bike clips your mirror, curses, and disappears between vans before you can even breathe out. The businessman says careful like he is reviewing a junior analyst, and you straighten the mirror with your palms still tingling. A crossing guard lifts one hand for school traffic, whistle cutting the air, and your passenger mutters about incompetence into his headset. You keep both hands at 10 and 2 because summons points cost more than pride, and medallion lease fees wait whether you earn or not. When the airport signs appear, pale green through dirty glass, the businessman asks for a printed receipt from the printer that jams every 3rd fare. You feed thermal paper with your thumbnail, hear the roller click wrong, and pray the strip comes out before he blames you too. It spits a crooked receipt after 3 tries, and he leaves without looking back, carry-on wheels rattling over the drop-off concrete. The taxi hold lot smells like jet fuel, wet gravel, and burnt pretzels, and a line of yellow cabs stretches farther than your patience. By 7:40, you inch forward a car length every 6 minutes, meter dead, engine idling, while the morning earnings chart stays stubbornly flat. A driver from the Bronx taps your window, asks if your heater works, and trades half a buttered roll for 2 acetaminophen. You swallow the pills with lukewarm coffee, feel the grit on your tongue, and thank him like he handed over an hour. Dispatch blasts another airport demand alert, useless inside the queue, and your phone buzzes with a lease reminder due by noon. When a family finally piles in with 3 hard-shell suitcases, one wheel leaves black streaks across your trunk liner. The father asks for Times Square, the mother asks for a car seat you do not have, and the child kicks the partition rhythmically. You explain city taxi rules over the hum of the vent fan, and the mother holds the child tighter without really hearing you. Traffic thickens near the Grand Central ramp, where a delivery truck double parks under a no standing sign everyone ignores before breakfast. The child presses sticky fingers against the plexiglass, making comet smears, and asks whether you ever get lost in New York. You say only when the map lies, and the father laughs once before returning to a rental invoice glowing on his phone. At 8:26, the tablet reroutes twice around a water main repair, then loses signal under scaffolding and reloads the trip from 0. Your stomach drops harder than the suspension because the lost route means fare disputes, screenshots, and another call to support that never helps. You pull over by a hydrant zone just long enough to reboot, hazard lights ticking, while a traffic agent glances over like a loaded die. The system restores the trip total -4 minutes, and you decide not to argue with software built to forget your side first. The family unloads beside a hotel revolving door, and the father tips in cash as if making a private correction to the machine. You nod, wipe the child's fingerprints with a microfiber rag, and watch 2 tour buses block half the lane anyway. Before 9 o'clock, the city feels fully awake, jackhammers biting the avenue, food carts steaming, and every curbside move turning into negotiation. A paralegal from Foley Square slides in with banker boxes, says Brooklyn Supreme, and smells faintly like toner and peppermint gum. She keeps checking stamped envelopes marked urgent, while you watch for potholes that can bounce evidence across a back seat. On Center Street, a sanitation truck squeezes the lane shut, backup alarm beeping steadily, and you lose another light cycle to garbage timing. The paralegal asks whether jurors ever take taxis, and you say everyone does when rain starts or a subway line forgets its promises. 4-1 block, sunlight catches the courthouse windows cleanly, and the city looks less tired than it sounds. Then a cyclist bangs your trunk, shouts about space, and the paralegal's boxes slide sideways despite your careful braking. You help her res-tack the files at the curb, aligning exhibit tabs by color, while the meter pauses and your lower back stiffens. She thanks you with that surprised tone people use when service workers behave like witnesses instead of furniture. By 10:10, the dispatcher messages all drivers about counterfeit 20s near Penn Station and warns of inspectors checking hack licenses. You touch your license sleeve by reflex, cracked at one corner, and think about the renewal fee still sitting on a credit card. Near Herald Square, a bellhop loads garment bags into your trunk and whispers that the passenger is already furious. The passenger enters on a perfume cloud, heels clicking, and says Wall Street fast, then asks why your USB charger does not work. You hand her the spare cable from the glove box, frayed near the end, and merge into traffic thick as wet cement. She takes 2 calls about a delayed closing, drops one swear after another, and blames every red light like it reports to you. At 10:43, police barricades divert traffic around a protest route, metal fencing rattling, and every navigation app redraws the island at once. You tell her the detour adds 12 minutes, maybe 15, and she threatens a complaint before the sentence even cools. You choose not to cut through the bus lane, though 2 cabs ahead cheat the camera zone and vanish behind a city bus. Your pulse climbs, but you stay in line because one summons can erase 3 airport runs and half a tank. She arrives late, tosses exact fare without tip, and slams the door hard enough to wake a fresh rattle in the rear panel. You sit 1 extra light at Broadway, not moving, letting the cabin go quiet except for the fan and distant sirens. A pigeon pecks at a dropped bagel near the median, absurdly calm, and for 6 seconds the city forgets to demand anything. Then the next ping lands, Chinatown pickup, cash preferred, and you pull away before the red countdown reaches 0. The cook waiting outside a restaurant carries 2 50-pound rice sacks on his shoulder and still apologizes for making your trunk dirty. Flour dust drifts off the bags. His apron smells like star anise and fryer oil, and he asks for a wholesaler in Sunset Park. He counts folded bills twice before handing them over, smoothing each note against his thumb as if flattening a worry. On the Manhattan Bridge approach, lane markings disappear under patched asphalt, and a box truck leans over the line like a threat. The cook asks how long you have driven nights and mornings together, and you say long enough to know both versions of tired. He nods as if that answer belongs to him too, and for a minute the cab feels like shared shelter instead of rented steel. At 11:32, your stomach reminds you breakfast was coffee and medicine, but the wholesale stop has no legal standing lane. You circle twice past shutter doors and forklifts, then risk 30 seconds by a loading dock while the cook unloads in a run. A private security guard starts toward you, reflective vest flashing, and you pull away just before his hand reaches your window. The meter total looks decent until you subtract fuel, lease, bridge tolls, credit card fees, and the printer roll you bought yourself. Before noon, you park beside a halal cart on 9th Avenue and eat lamb over rice with the fork bending in your hand. Grease soaks the paper tray, cumin hangs warm in the air, and your phone shows 3 missed calls from the leasing office. You call back between bites, and a clerk with a flat voice says payment by 12:30 or tomorrow's shift goes to standby. You check the envelope under the visor, count twice, and realize yesterday's mechanic bill shaved closer to the line than you admitted. A rookie driver nearby asks which bridges are safest when GPS goes stupid, and you draw the routes on a napkin with hot sauce. He grins like the city just gave him a password, and for one clean minute you sound more certain than you feel. At 12:14, the garage sends another message. Radiator complaints on 3 cabs. Report heat spikes immediately. No spare vehicles available. You look at your temperature gauge a little too long. Then start the engine and hear the fan belt chirp once. The next fare is an elderly man from Chelsea with an oxygen concentrator humming softly and a dialysis wristband under his cuff. He gives you a clinic address in Harlem, folded appointment card trembling slightly, and asks whether you can avoid rough streets. You promise what suspension and asphalt cannot always keep, then drive slower than traffic lights and faster than lateness allows. On 8th Avenue, a delivery van doors open without warning, and you brake so hard the concentrator bumps the seat back. The old man catches his breath through the cannula, then says take your time, son, in a voice thinner than tissue paper. You pull over, hazard lights ticking, check whether he is steady, and choose to document the abrupt stop in the trip notes. Cars behind you lean on their horns, but you wait until his breathing evens and the machine's green light stops shaking. He pats the partition twice when you move again, a tiny signal that feels bigger than any tip you have taken today. By 1 p.m., the clinic curb is jammed with ambulettes, black sedans, and rideshare SUVs, each one hunting the same 6 feet. An attendant waves you through anyway, recognizes the wristband, and helps the old man onto the sidewalk with practiced hands. He leaves 3 crumpled singles and half a peppermint in the cup holder, and you pocket both like evidence of a truce. The summer bright noon flattens every building edge, but the inside of the cab still smells like old heat and antiseptic tubing. Dispatch marks your acceptance rate at 82% and warns bonuses vanish below 80, as if bonuses ever land clean. The breakpoint comes at 1:18 when a hospital discharge coordinator calls your number directly from yesterday's receipt stub. She asks whether you can take a wheelchair patient to the Bronx without booking through the official broker because the broker is 2 hours late. She says the patient has been waiting since morning, insurance paperwork is tangled, and no accessible van has answered dispatch. You are not a wheelchair van. Your trunk already carries jumper cables and a leaking quart of coolant, and the legal answer is no. But lease payment, acceptance score, and the memory of the old man shaking hands crowd the same small space behind your ribs. You drive to the hospital entrance anyway, windshield glaring white, telling yourself you are only checking whether another cab arrived first. At the discharge curb, a nurse in blue scrubs stands beside a folded transport chair and a man with one shoe unlaced. The nurse explains he can transfer with help. No oxygen, no stretcher, just weak legs and a pharmacy stop before home. Security cameras watch from the canopy, and the clipboard on her arm makes every shortcut look official for exactly 3 dangerous seconds. You choose to ask for the patient's discharge packet, emergency contact, and pharmacy address, buying legality with details you may still need. The man lowers himself into the back seat inch by inch, jaw tight, while the folded chair wedges beside the trunk's spare tire. His discharge bracelet scratches the vinyl, and he apologizes for taking time as if time were yours to donate. You know this ride could mean complaint, liability, or worse if he falls, yet leaving him there feels like signing something colder. At 1:41, the nurse presses a photocopied medication list into your hand and says thank you like she is out of options. The pharmacy line snakes to the greeting cards, fluorescent lights buzzing, and you cannot legally leave the car unattended in the bus stop zone. You choose to circle the block 3 times while the man waits on a plastic chair inside, visible through the glass between coughs. Every loop burns fuel you cannot spare, and a meter-off ride gives you nothing except the chance to finish what the system dropped. When he returns with a stapled white bag, his hands shake so badly you take it gently and set it on the seat. He gives you a Bronx apartment number, then adds that his daughter thinks he is still upstairs because her shift started at noon. The twist enters quietly there. The daughter's name matches the nurse who was your first passenger before dawn.
You hear the
You glance at the rearview mirror, seeing the same family eyes under hospital fatigue, and the whole day suddenly folds in on itself. Traffic on the major Deegan crawls past concrete barriers, summer tar smell rising, while the man dozes against the window between jolts. You hear the tablet ping airport demand again, absurd and bright, as if another profitable world exists one lane over. Near Yankee Stadium, temperature spikes flash once on your dash, then drop, and you turn the heater on to pull engine heat. Warm air floods the cabin even in daylight, and the man wakes confused, asking whether the car is supposed to smell sweet. Coolant has that candy metal smell, and now the stakes sharpen because a breakdown with a weak passenger is no longer a theory. You call the garage, get voicemail, then call roadside support, who asks for policy numbers while traffic inches and the gauge trembles. You choose the service road exit instead of gambling on one more mile, losing time but keeping the engine below the red. The apartment building has no ramp at the front, only 3 cracked steps and an intercom with one dead button. The man insists he can manage if you steady his elbow, and your lower back warns you before you even open the door. You call the daughter from the number on the discharge sheet, and when she answers, ambulance noise roars behind her voice. She is still on shift in Queens, did not know he had been released, and says please do not leave him outside. You guide him to the vestibule, one hand under his forearm, sneaker soles slipping slightly on worn mosaic tile. A neighbor hears the commotion, opens the inner door with a chain still latched, and recognizes him by the pharmacy bag. Together you get him inside to the elevator that groans like old machinery giving one last honest effort. He presses 4 with a trembling thumb, then thanks you by your medallion number because he never asked your name. Back downstairs, coolant dots the asphalt under the bumper, bright green against old oil stains and fast food wrappers. By 3:30, roadside finally answers with a 40-minute window, and the lease office texts that your payment cutoff has passed. You send the last of your cash through a payment app, overdraft warning flashing, and sit on the hood eating the second half of lunch cold. Kids bounce a basketball in the next block schoolyard, the hollow rhythm steady, while a tow truck siren fades somewhere uptown. The rookie you helped at noon messages thanks for the bridge routes and says he just cleared his first airport run. You type back one word, good, and stare at it like it belongs to someone with a cleaner shirt and less debt. The tow truck arrives at 4:11, driver chewing sunflower seeds, and says half the fleet is running hot because maintenance stretched coolant schedules. He hooks your cab by the axle, shakes his head at the drips, and tells you management will call it driver wear. At the garage, the supervisor studies the radiator cap, your trip log, and the late lease payment without looking directly at you. He asks why you took an off-book hospital ride, because the discharge coordinator called later to ask for the cab number again. For 1 second, you imagine the complaint version: unauthorized transport, liability exposure, medallion review, maybe suspension during the busiest week. Then the supervisor says the coordinator also reported you waded through the pharmacy and got the man safely into his building. He does not praise you, he only grunts, writes hold inspection on a tag, and says next time call dispatch first. The climax is smaller than a crash but tighter in the chest. You realize one right choice can still bill you like a mistake. Your cab is grounded for the evening, no spare available, and the lost shift means tonight's airport money goes to someone else. In the locker room, fluorescent tubes flicker over dented metal doors, and your shirt smells of coolant, fryer oil, and stale worry. You wash your hands twice, but the sweet metallic odor stays in the lines of your skin and under one thumbnail. The nurse from Dawn calls from an unknown number just as you lace your boots, and you answer on the second vibration. She says the neighbor reached her, her father is home, and she did not know you were the same driver from morning. For a moment, all you hear is locker room plumbing knocking and a radio somewhere reciting traffic around the bridge approaches. She thanks you without polishing the words, the way tired people do when gratitude has no spare energy for decoration. You say he was tougher than the stairs, and a small laugh crosses the line before the hospital pages her back. Evening rain starts as you step outside, warm drops stippling the pavement, and a fresh row of drivers signs out for night shift. One of them asks whether your cab is free after inspection, already eyeing the medallion tag clipped to the keyboard. The supervisor hands your key set to another driver, scribbles tomorrow 0500 beside your name, and says be here early. Steam rises from the grates again, just like dawn, Except now the city
My
smells of
feet
wet
ache,
brakes,
shoulder
diesel,
clicks,
and reheated
phone's
street
nearly
meat.
dead.
Your feet ache in the arches,
One charge
your right
left.
shoulder clicks when you roll it, and your phone balance sits one charge from zero. Across the lot, the rookie backs out too fast, stalls, restarts, and checks both mirrors the way you showed him. Nobody claps, nobody announces lessons learned, and the garage gate keeps lifting and dropping for whoever
Lease,
still has fuel
gas,
left.
coffee,
You count
printer
tomorrow's
paper,
likely
tolls,
costs in your head.
the
Lease,
radiator.
gas,
I need to
coffee,
make sure I can
printer
afford
paper,
The
tolls,
city beyond
and
the
whatever
fence
the
keeps
radiator
calling
inspection
cabs with wet
decides.
hands,
The city
airport
beyond the
luggage,
fence keeps
court
calling
files,
cabs
food
with wet
sacks,
hands,
and people too
airport
tired to
luggage,
stand.
court
Another
files,
one.
food
2 more
sacks,
down?
and people too tired to stand. A new message lands from dispatch about overnight shortages,
Just tell me who I need to
expected
call.
demand, and possible delays because 2 more vehicles are down. You tuck the dead printer receipt into your pocket anyway. A thin strip of proof that the day happened in numbered pieces. The rain hardens, roof lights glow yellow through it, and your reflection in the garage window looks like another passenger waiting. You leave, but the job doesn't leave you.